you might want to click off of this video. And I'm not saying that for drama, because what we're about to do can permanently change how you perceive reality and how you experience your own mind. If you're here for comfort, certainty, or spiritual entertainment, this isn't it. If you're curious about how perception actually works, how reality is rendered moment by moment, and why physics quietly implies you're living through an interface, stay. One more thing. This is not medical advice, and if altered perception states aren't a good idea for you, please choose safety first. Alright, let's begin. Welcome everyone to the simulation frequency. Today, we're taking something that looks like it belongs in a textbook and turning it into a practical reality shifting protocol. Not manifestation fluff, not affirmations, not just believe. We're combining 5 physics equations that take you from force to fields to waves. A radical, increasingly popular idea across biology, machine learning, and philosophy, Platonic space, that physical reality seems to pull from, and a deep learning style protocol for updating your internal model of reality. Here's the punchline. You're going to understand it by the end. You're not living in reality. You're living in a representation your system has learned to render. And once you really see that, the rules change. Let's talk about the physics ladder that breaks the spell. Let's climb the ladder fast. So how about the first equation, force? Newton hands you the basic worldview. Force produces motion. Cause leads to effect. It's clean, comforting, but it's also incomplete. Let's look at equation 2, gravity. 2 masses attract. Distance matters. Predictable. One directional. This is default timeline physics. Heavy, slow, kind of like pushing your life uphill, calling it growth. Now let's check out equation 3, Coulomb's law. Now watch what happens. It's basically the same equation shape, but suddenly you get attraction or repulsion. Same structure, different behavior. And that should bother you because it means something. Reality doesn't only pull, it also pushes. Polarity matters, which means the you interacting with reality isn't just mass, it's also charge. And the moment you realize that, you start noticing the psychological equivalent. Sometimes you want something and it gets closer. Sometimes you want something and it runs further away. Same desire, different internal polarity. Let's talk about this fourth equation, the Ampere-Maxwell law. This is the part that feels like someone left the backstage door open. A magnetic field can be produced by a current, which is a charge of motion, or a changing electric field, meaning fields can generate fields. And what's the translation of that? Your internal state doesn't just respond to reality, it can induce reality. Not by wishing, but by changing what you're broadcasting over time. Let's dive into that fifth equation, the wave equation. This is where we now move from objects to propagation. Reality becomes waves, movement through space-time, patterns spreading through a medium. And now here's the punchline. The deeper you go into physics, the less solid object reality looks like reality. It starts looking like structured behavior in an invisible substrate. Which brings us to the problem physics never fully resolves. Where do the patterns come from? So let's deep dive into why asking why leads to a different world. There's an old phenomena. You ask why enough times, and you leave your department. Here's a biology example. Cicadas emerge every 13 or 17 years. Why? Due to predator cycles. What's special about 13 and 17? They're prime. Now you're not in biology anymore. You're in mathematics. So let's talk about a physics example. Ask why particles behave the way they do, and eventually someone says, it's symmetry. It's the structure, it's the group, or it's the math. And this is the disturbing part. Mathematical truths impact the physical world, but the physical world can't rewrite them. A triangle doesn't vote on geometry. A transistor doesn't negotiate with logic tables. The interface shows you the rule. It doesn't invent it. So even when Newton's classical physical universe was already haunted, not by spirits, but by non-physical constraints that decide what's possible here, that's where the Platonic space idea comes in. But we're not going to talk about it like a philosophy lecture. We're going to talk about it like an engineering problem. So let's dive into the Platonic space hypothesis and let's make it actionable. So across disciplines right now, there's this undercurrent of people realizing something, that the world might be pulling from a structured space of patterns. Call it Platonic space, or pattern space, or latent structure. The label isn't really the point. The point is the mechanism. Physical things behave like pointers. They're interfaces. Build a triangle, and geometry becomes visible. Build a transistor, and computation becomes visible. And biology exploits these free lunches like it's a glitch in the simulation. It builds interfaces that pull in behaviors, competencies, and patterns that aren't obviously paid for by step-by-step evolution in the way we assume. So now the radical leap. If low agency patterns in this space, mass structures, symmetries, then high agency patterning might also live there. Problem solving, goal-directed behavior, mind-like competencies, which leads to the think client idea Michael Levin discusses. Your brain may not manufacture consciousness the way a factory makes products. Your brain might be a receiver, a tuned interface, a thin client that allows certain mind patterns to ingress. And before you reject that, remember, physics already emits patterns that shape reality but don't originate from matter. This is just that idea, scaled. So now the question becomes, if you're an interface, can you retune it? Yes. And this is where the deep learning becomes the bridge. Here's the core insight from deep learning. The output isn't where the magic begins. Dog or cat? Yes or no? Success or failure? The output is the end of the pipeline, and the power lives in the middle layers. Representations. Deep learning stopped trying to manually label reality and instead learned internal representations from raw input. Translation into human terms, your brain is doing the same thing. You are not responding to the world. You're responding to your internal model of the world. Your life is an output of that model. And your model is trained by what you repeatedly experience, what your body learns is safe, what you emotionally rehearse, what your attention feeds, and what your nervous system agrees is survivable. So reality shifting doesn't start with demanding a new outcome. It starts with changing the internal representation your system treats as normal. That's why you can't think your way out, because your conscious mind isn't the architect, it's the narrator. Here's the equation that nobody teaches. Input plus representation plus repetition equals output. Most people attack the output. I want money, love, or a new life, but they keep the same representation. Money isn't safe. Love ends in loss, and I always fall behind. And that's like training a neural network on failure data and acting shocked when it predicts failure. So we're going to do what deep learning does to the subconscious. We change the training data. So let's try this experiment. This is the experience-based reality shifting protocol, and you can do this tonight. Choose one output, not 10 goals, just one. Something your system won't reject. Some examples are, I wake up calm and focused. I feel financially steady. I receive a message that changes my path. I feel safe being visible. Keep it simple, no forcing. Step 2, build a representation, not a wish. The brain doesn't learn from slogans. It learns from experience patterns. So choose 3 cues. Something visual, something ordinary you'd see if it was real, and a body physical state. And pick a behavior, a micro action you'd naturally do. Here's a financial steadiness example. The visual would be checking your account without bracing. And in your body, your shoulders should feel relaxed, and your breathing should be slower, and your behavior would be paying for something calmly. That's the representation, not the fantasy, the normal. In deep learning, if the signal is negative, output 0. So when fear thoughts appear, don't debate them, don't heal them, don't spiral. Label them not training data, and then return to your 3 cues. This isn't suppression, it's selection, and you're deciding what gets to shape the model. Step 4, run 10 training iterations. So each rep, inhale, visualize a snapshot, feel the body signal, imagine the behavior, and exhale 10 times. You just updated weights. So now let's go to step 5, which would be the wave lock. This is where physics comes in. A changing field induces motion. A coherent signal propagates. So instead of visualizing the future, you sample an experience. Right before sleep, or anytime you're calm, briefly be the version of you where this is normal. Not exciting, not dramatic, but familiar. Because the brain prioritizes what feels safe and repeatable, not what feels intense. You're not programming, you're teaching. Now step 6, a stabilizer action. Deep learning updates based on feedback. So tomorrow, take one tiny action consistent with the new model. Send 1 email, list 1 item, clean 1 surface, walk 10 minutes, open the bank app calmly, post a video without bracing. This tells the system, this isn't imagination, this is active. And that's how you anchor the shift. So what'll be the signs that the shift is working? You'll notice less resistance thinking about the outcome, new options popping into awareness, subtle synchronicities, and different choices without forcing. It's because your body is acting like the new state is now familiar. It's not necessarily magic. That's representation updating. That's the interface retuning. So stop trying to bully reality and train the representation. Feed your brain new experiences, filter fear as irrelevant data, and run the reps and stabilize with action. Because the simulation responds fastest when the mind and body agree. This is safe, this is real, and this is the new default. And if you're feeling brave, leave 1 comment about the output you're going to train this week. So until next time, guys, I know you're all going to continue to manifest magic and resonate on your most aligned frequency.